Rapunzel, a stick figure story, written and illustrated by K. Ryan Henisey.
Once, not so long ago, and not so far away, there lived a man and a woman on the edge of town. When the woman was pregnant with their child, she had the strangest of cravings. One day she would want ice cream, the next day she would want pickles. It came to pass one day that she craved tomatoes, and so she sent her husband out into the village. "Please, husband, find me a tomato. Any tomato will do." And so he looked. He went to the market, and he went to the grocery, and he asked all the neighbors, but there wasn't a single tomato in the village. In despair, he was returning home, and just as he was passing his neighbor, the witch's house, he saw a tomato plant growing in the garden in her backyard. And he thought, well, maybe I can get a tomato from her. And so he approached the door. He was a little bit afraid. I mean, she is a witch after all. And he knocked, and he knocked again, and there was no answer. And he waited a bit, and he looked around, and he thought, well, maybe I'll come back a little bit later. Maybe she's out. And so he went home, and he told his wife that he thought he might be able to get a tomato today, but that he wasn't sure, and he didn't want to get her hopes up, and she was so devastated. And and so he waited, and a few hours later he went back to the witch's house, and he knocked again, and he knocked, but still there was no answer, and so he returned home, and his wife, she was just so sad not to have a tomato that she went to bed without eating any of her dinner, and he was quite worried. And so, in the dark, he crept into the yard and climbed over the fence and into the witch's garden, and he plucked a tomato from the plant. And he turned to go back, and just as he was about to climb over the wall, he felt a tap on his shoulder, and he turned, and there she was, the witch. Oh, the witch. Yes, with all of her wrinkles and her long nose and her jagged teeth. And she said, "You have something of mine." Well, yes. You see, I wanted to ask you for a tomato, and I came and I knocked, and I came again and I knocked, and I did want to buy it from you, but you weren't home, and well, my wife wanted one, and I thought, what harm could there be? It's just a tomato. And the witch said, "There is always harm in entering a witch's garden, sir." And the man was quite afraid. "What, what, what can I do to repay you?" he asked. And the witch looked at him, and she said, "Your child. If it is a girl, you will give it to me. If it is a boy, you may keep it yourself. That is the price of your theft. Now go." And and the man, he was quite afraid, and so he left, and he went over the wall, and then he thought about what he had heard, and he thought, well, I mean, maybe it'll be a boy, and then I won't have to worry about it at all. And then he thought, well, but what can she do? She can't take a child from me. And so he took the tomato to his wife, and she ate it. And a few months later, a girl was born. And that very night, the witch appeared at their door, demanding her price. And she took the girl away from them, and she disappeared from their lives forever. The girl grew up to be quite lovely, but she was kept in isolation, far away from all humans, far away from all people, far away from all cities, from all cars, from all subways, from all planes, from the internet, from cell phones, from everything, in the highest tower, in the farthest woods. There she was kept, alone, with only the witch as her company. There were no doors to the tower, only great windows at the top, and whenever the witch wanted to reach the girl, she would call up, all the way to the top, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair!" And the girl would. She would cast her hair, all of it that she had grown since birth, out the window, and it would fall, long, golden tresses, all the way to the ground. The witch would climb it, and there at the top they would spend their nights together, telling stories, playing games, and enjoying each other's company. One night, after hunting a fox, a prince saw the witch climbing the side of the tower, and he thought it was the strangest thing. He drew closer, and he watched through the night, eventually seeing Rapunzel there at the window, and he instantly fell in love. He came night after night, and he watched, and he observed. The next day, when he was sure that the witch had already gone, he called up to the tower, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." And the girl, not knowing any different, not knowing to be afraid, not knowing that there might be danger, let her hair fall, all the beautiful blonde tresses, all the way to the ground. And the prince climbed up, and when she saw him, she instantly fell in love, and they spent the day together, and they played games, and they told stories, and they enjoyed each other's company, and they made promises to see each other again. That night, the witch called up to Rapunzel, and as soon as she came up to the high part of the tower, she knew that something had changed. "You have betrayed me," she said. "You have let another in here. You have ruined everything. You have spoiled it all." And without letting Rapunzel say anything, or explain her feelings, or share about her love, the witch cut off her hair, and she cast her from the tower, and she told her never to return. The next day the prince called up to the tower, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." And the golden tresses fell all the way to the ground. He climbed them to the top, and there, just as he was at the window, he saw the witch's face, and she laughed at him, and she scratched at his face, and she said, "This is what you deserve," and she threw him from the tower, and he fell to the ground, into the briars at the bottom, and they gouged out his eyes, and he was blinded. For many, many days, the prince wandered the woods alone. In darkness, he couldn't see, his eyes ruined by the thorns. And for many, many days, Rapunzel wandered the woods, lost and afraid. But when the moon was fresh and full, and light filled the woods, she heard him weeping, and she ran to him, and when she saw his face, she too wept, and her tears fell in the sockets of his eyes, and her love cured him, and he could see, and they lived happily ever after. The end.
Thanks for watching. This is K. Ryan Henisey. Be sure to visit kryanhennessy.com for books, stories, art, and more. Thanks for coming.